My beloved child, God says. Don't scroll. If this message found you today, it wasn't an accident. Stay until the end because there is something unexpected you need to hear about. Your soulmate, and this time, the message is connected to someone you may never have expected to become part of the story. Your soulmate has been carrying something in their heart. And instead of coming directly to you, they secretly reached out to your brother. Yes, my child. There was a conversation you may know nothing about. There were questions asked about you when you were not present. There were things your soulmate wanted to understand before making their next move. And what they asked your brother was not something casual. It was not simply, "How are they doing?" It was deeper than that. They wanted to know something about your heart. They wanted to know whether you still cared. They wanted to know whether you had moved on. They wanted to know whether someone else had entered your life. And most importantly, they wanted to know something they were too afraid to ask you directly. My child, you may have been wondering why your soulmate has been acting differently lately. You may have noticed that their energy changed. Perhaps they became quieter. Perhaps they stopped communicating as openly as before. Perhaps they disappeared for a while and then suddenly appeared again. Maybe you have felt as though something was happening behind the scenes. Something you could sense but could not prove. And now I want you to understand that sometimes people who are afraid of rejection do not approach the person they love directly. They look for someone they trust. They search for information indirectly. They ask questions through another person because they are afraid of hearing the answer from your own mouth. Your soulmate may have been trying to understand whether the door to your heart was still open. But they were afraid that if they asked you directly, you might tell them that it was too late. They may have imagined you saying, "I have moved on." They may have imagined you telling them that you no longer cared. They may have imagined that someone else was already occupying the place they once hoped to have. And because they were afraid of that answer, they chose another path. They contacted your brother. They may have approached the conversation casually. They may have pretended that they were simply checking on you. They may have started with a simple question, something that sounded harmless. But underneath that question was a much deeper emotion. They were trying to discover whether you still had feelings for them. They wanted to know what your brother thought about the situation. They wanted to know whether you had mentioned their name. They wanted to know whether you still talked about them. They wanted to know whether you were angry. They wanted to know whether you were waiting. And your brother may have been surprised by the questions. He may have wondered why this person suddenly cared so much about information that should have been asked directly from you. But my child, your soulmate was not asking because they were curious. They were asking because they were emotionally affected. They were trying to find courage without actually admitting that they needed courage. And there is something even more unexpected about this conversation. Your soulmate may have asked your brother something that revealed just how deeply they have been thinking about you. They may have asked, "Does your brother or sister still think about me?" They may have asked, "Have they said anything about me?" They may have asked, "Are they seeing someone?" They may have asked, "Do they hate me?" Or perhaps they asked something even more personal, something that your brother did not expect to hear from them. They may have asked whether you would ever give them another chance. My child, understand the emotional meaning behind these questions. A person who has truly moved on usually does not need to secretly investigate whether you still care. A person who feels nothing does not normally become nervous about what your family thinks of them. A person who has completely closed the chapter does not need to know whether the door is still open. Your soulmate may have been pretending to be calm, but their questions exposed something their behavior was trying to hide. They still care. They still wonder. They still remember. They still have unanswered questions in their heart. But my child, do not take this as a command to chase them. Do not suddenly message them demanding answers. Do not confront your brother aggressively. Do not assume every detail is exactly as you imagine it. This message is about recognizing a pattern of emotions, not inventing facts. If there really has been a conversation, let the truth come through real communication. Do not allow assumptions to create unnecessary conflict. Because what your soulmate may be preparing to do next could change the entire dynamic between you. They may finally stop communicating indirectly. They may finally decide that if they want an answer, they need to hear it from you. And that is where the unexpected part begins. Your soulmate has been thinking about approaching you directly. They have been imagining the conversation. They have thought about what they would say. They have wondered whether they should apologize first. They have wondered whether they should explain their absence. They have wondered whether they should admit that they were scared. And perhaps they have even rehearsed the words in their mind before going to sleep. I need to tell you something. I never stopped caring. I was afraid. I didn't know how to approach you. I wanted to know if you still felt the same. My child, sometimes the strongest emotions hide behind the weakest actions. Someone can deeply care and still behave inconsistently because they are afraid. Someone can miss you and still refuse to call because they do not know how you will respond. Someone can love you and still make mistakes because they are not emotionally prepared to handle the depth of their own feelings. But that does not mean you should excuse every mistake. It means you should understand that people are complicated. Love does not automatically make someone brave. Sometimes love exposes the places where a person is most afraid. Your soulmate may have discovered that they are far more emotionally attached to you than they expected. They may have believed they could simply move forward without looking back. They may have told themselves that enough time would erase the memories. They may have tried to distract themselves. They may have talked to other people. They may have stayed busy. They may have convinced themselves that they were fine. But then something reminded them of you. A song. A place. A conversation. A photograph. A familiar name. A date. A memory. And suddenly all the emotions they had buried came back. My child, sometimes a person does not realize how much they miss someone until they experience a moment when they desperately want to tell that person something and realize they are no longer there. That realization can be painful. And perhaps that is what has been happening to your soulmate. They have been discovering that replacing your presence is not as easy as they thought. They may have discovered that other connections do not feel the same. They may have discovered that they still compare new experiences to old memories with you. And instead of admitting that directly, they reached toward someone who could give them information about you. Your brother became the unexpected bridge. But there is another reason. Your soulmate may have contacted him. They may have wanted approval. They may have wanted to know whether your family would accept them if they came back. They may have wondered what your brother thinks of them now. They may have feared that your family remembers everything that happened between you. Perhaps they are worried that your brother is protective of you. Perhaps they know that if they hurt you before, your brother may not easily trust them again. And this fear may be stopping them from approaching you. They may be asking themselves, what if the family doesn't want me around anymore? My child, this is where something unexpected can happen. Your brother may become more important to this story than you realize. Not because your brother is controlling your relationship, but because sometimes family members become witnesses to the transformation of a person. Your soulmate may need to demonstrate that they are serious. They may need to show that they are not returning simply because they are lonely. They may need to prove through actions that they have changed. And perhaps your brother's reaction to that conversation made your soulmate think more deeply than they expected. Maybe your brother did not give them the easy answer they wanted. Maybe he did not say, yes, they are waiting for you. Maybe instead he asked them difficult questions. Why do you want to know? Why don't you ask them yourself? What are your intentions? Are you serious? And those questions may have forced your soulmate to confront themselves. Because sometimes the person we secretly approach ends up holding a mirror to us. Your soulmate may have realized that they cannot keep hiding behind indirect conversations. They may have realized that if they genuinely want another chance, they need to become brave enough to speak directly. My child, perhaps this is why their energy has felt different. They are not simply thinking about you. They are thinking about what it would take to return properly. There is a difference between wanting someone back and being ready to build something healthy with them. They may want you back, but now they are beginning to understand that wanting is not enough. They need to communicate. They need to explain. They need to take responsibility for the past. They need to rebuild trust. They need to show consistency. And you, my child, must remember your own value throughout this process. Do not accept a return simply because you have missed them. Do not forget the pain simply because they finally say they miss you. Do not allow one emotional conversation to erase months or years of behavior. Listen, observe, and take your time. If they truly mean what they say, they will not pressure you. They will allow their actions to speak. My child, your soulmate may have secretly asked your brother something that shocked even him. Perhaps they asked whether you still keep something connected to them. Maybe they wanted to know whether you still have their old messages. Maybe they asked whether you still mention a particular memory. Maybe they asked whether you have ever spoken about forgiving them. These questions reveal nostalgia. And nostalgia can be powerful. People often remember the good moments when they are lonely, but a healthy reunion requires remembering the entire story, including what went wrong. Your soulmate may be starting to understand that now. They may be remembering not only the happy moments, but also the moments when they failed you. And that realization may be creating regret. My child, regret can either become destructive or transformative. A person can sit in regret forever and do nothing, or they can use regret as motivation to become better. Your soulmate may be moving toward the second path. They may be asking themselves, if I ever get another opportunity, what will I do differently? That question is important. Because if they return, they cannot simply repeat the same behavior. They cannot disappear whenever they become afraid. They cannot leave you guessing. They cannot expect you to trust them immediately. They cannot demand access to the same heart they once wounded without rebuilding the foundation. And perhaps your brother's involvement has made them understand that. My child, there is another possibility I want you to consider. Perhaps your soulmate did not contact your brother because they were ready to return immediately. Perhaps they were simply trying to gather courage. Sometimes people take small steps before making a major move. Asking your brother may have been their first attempt to enter your world again without risking direct rejection. They may have wanted to know whether you would be receptive before taking the bigger step. And if your brother gave them an answer that made them believe you were not completely closed off, they may now be thinking about contacting you directly. But again, do not chase the outcome. Let their next action reveal their intention. If they want to speak to you, let them speak. If they want to apologize, let them apologize. If they want to explain, let them explain. And if they do not take action, do not spend your life interpreting silence. My child, you deserve a love that eventually becomes clear. You deserve someone who can say, I choose you, without hiding behind other people. You deserve someone who can communicate their feelings without making you solve a mystery. You deserve someone who can stand in front of you and take responsibility for what happened. And if your soulmate is becoming that person, you will see it through their actions. You will not have to force it. You will not have to chase it. You will not have to beg for it. The truth will reveal itself. My beloved child, something about this situation is changing because you are changing. You are no longer the same person who waited desperately for an answer. You have learned patience. You have learned boundaries. You have learned that love without communication can become painful. You have learned that sometimes people care and still hurt you. You have learned that forgiveness does not mean forgetting. And now you are becoming strong enough to face whatever comes next. If your soulmate returns, you will not simply ask, do you love me? You will ask, what has changed? That question is powerful. You will ask, why did you leave? You will ask, what do you want now? You will ask, are you prepared to be consistent? You will ask, can I trust your actions? These questions will protect your heart. And if they truly love you, they will not run from them. They will answer. My child, your brother may have unintentionally become part of a story that was already unfolding. A conversation that seemed small may have had a much bigger emotional impact. Perhaps your soulmate walked away from that conversation thinking about you more than ever. Perhaps your brother's words made them realize that they cannot keep waiting. Perhaps something was said that challenged their assumptions. Perhaps they learned something about your current life that they were not expecting. And now they are reconsidering everything. But do not assume exactly what was said. Let reality speak for itself. This is not about creating fear. It is about preparing your heart for honest communication. And my child, if they eventually approach you, do not respond from desperation. Respond from peace. You do not need to prove that you have been waiting. You do not need to reveal every emotion immediately. You can listen first. You can take your time. You can decide later. You have the right to protect your heart while still being kind. And perhaps that calm response is exactly what your soulmate needs to see. They need to understand that you are no longer willing to live inside uncertainty. They need to understand that your love has matured. It is no longer about chasing. It is about choosing. And if both of you choose each other with honesty, there may be something beautiful to rebuild. My beloved child, the unexpected question your soulmate asked your brother may have opened a door they never expected to open. But what happens next will depend on whether they are willing to walk through that door with courage. They have already taken one step by reaching out indirectly. The next step must be theirs. Let them take it. Let them show you. Let them speak. Let them demonstrate that their intentions are real. And while they are deciding, you keep growing. You keep healing. You keep becoming stronger. Because whether they return tomorrow, next month, or never, you are not standing still. Your life continues. Your purpose continues. Your story continues. And my child, perhaps the greatest unexpected revelation is this: your soulmate may have contacted your brother because they were afraid you had stopped caring, but what they may discover is that you have not stopped caring, you have simply stopped chasing. And that difference may be exactly what finally makes them understand the value of what they almost lost. My beloved child, God says, there is another layer to this story that you have not yet seen, and this is where the situation becomes even more unexpected. Your soulmate did not simply ask about you because they were curious. There was an emotion behind those questions that they have been trying to hide even from themselves. They wanted reassurance. They wanted to know whether they still had a place in your heart. They wanted to know whether the door was completely closed or whether there was still a small opening through which they could return. And my child, the reason they could not come directly to you is because they were afraid of what your eyes might reveal. They were afraid that you would look at them and they would immediately know whether you still cared. They were afraid that one conversation could destroy the little hope they had been holding on to. So they chose the safer path. They went through someone close to you. They asked questions indirectly. They tried to understand your feelings without having to expose their own. But what they did not realize is that their questions may have revealed more about their own heart than anything they could have told you directly. They may have asked whether you still mention them. They may have asked whether you are happy without them. They may have asked whether you are talking to someone new. They may have asked whether you would ever speak to them again. And perhaps the most important question was not even spoken aloud. The real question inside their heart was, is it too late? My child, they have been wondering whether time has changed you completely. They know that they disappeared. They know that distance grew between you. They know that there were moments when you needed answers and they did not provide them. They know there were opportunities when they could have spoken but chose silence instead. And now they are beginning to understand the consequences of those choices. They may be realizing that you are no longer standing exactly where they left you. You have changed. Your priorities have changed. Your understanding of love has changed. You may still care about them, but you are no longer willing to accept the same uncertainty. And that realization is making them nervous. They may have expected you to remain emotionally available forever, but now they are beginning to understand that your heart has limits. You can love someone and still move forward. You can remember someone and still choose yourself. You can miss someone and still refuse to repeat the same painful cycle. My child, this is what your soulmate may be struggling to understand. They may have believed that because the connection was strong, you would always be waiting. But real life does not work that way. Time changes people. Experiences change people. Pain changes people. And sometimes losing access to someone teaches a person the value of what they once took for granted. Your soulmate may now be experiencing that realization. They may be looking back at the past and remembering moments they once considered ordinary. Conversations that once seemed small now feel precious. Your laughter that they once heard casually now feels like a memory they would give anything to hear again. The little things about you that they never paid attention to are suddenly the things they remember most. The way you spoke. The way you reacted when you were excited. The way you cared when they were struggling. The way you could understand something without them explaining it. These memories may have become stronger with distance instead of weaker. And, my child, that is why they may have started asking questions about you. They are trying to understand whether the connection still exists outside their own memories. They want evidence that you have not completely forgotten them. But there is something they must learn. They cannot build a future by only remembering the past. If they want another opportunity, they must create something new with you. They cannot simply return and expect everything to go back to how it was. The old relationship had weaknesses. There were misunderstandings. There were communication problems. There were moments of fear and uncertainty. If they return, those things must be addressed. And perhaps this is what your brother's conversation forced them to think about. Maybe your brother did not simply answer their questions. Maybe he made them realize that returning to you would require more than saying, "I miss you." It would require responsibility. It would require courage. It would require consistency. It would require them to explain why they disappeared and what has changed since then. My beloved child, there is a difference between someone missing you and someone being ready for you. Missing you is emotional. Being ready for you is a decision. Missing you can happen in one night. Building trust can take months. Missing you can be easy. Taking responsibility can be difficult. Saying, "I love you" can take seconds. Demonstrating that love consistently can take years. So if this person comes back, do not only listen to their emotions. Watch their maturity. Watch their consistency. Watch whether their actions match their promises. That is where you will find your answer. My child, you may also discover that your soulmate has been carrying regret. They may regret not contacting you sooner. They may regret allowing other people's opinions to influence their decisions. They may regret being too proud to apologize. They may regret assuming that you would always be there. They may regret the moment they chose silence instead of honesty. And regret can make someone look backward constantly. But looking backward is not enough. At some point, a person must turn around and walk toward the future. Perhaps they are standing at that exact point now. They have been looking backward long enough. They have been remembering you long enough. They have been wondering long enough. And now they are asking themselves whether they should finally do something about it. My child, this may be why the conversation with your brother happened. It may have been the first crack in the wall they built around their emotions. They may have wanted to test the waters. They may have wanted to know whether approaching you would be welcomed or rejected. They may have been afraid that your family would see them as the person who hurt you and refuse to give them another chance. And perhaps they are right to understand that trust cannot be demanded. Trust must be earned again. If they want to return, they must be prepared for questions. They must be prepared for hesitation. They must be prepared for you to move slowly. And if they truly understand what they did, they will not rush you. They will not pressure you. They will not manipulate you with guilt. They will give you space to decide. My child, never confuse pressure with love. Someone who truly respects you will respect your boundaries. Someone who truly cares will understand that you may need time. Someone who truly wants to rebuild will not demand that you forget the past immediately. They will understand that healing has its own timeline. And perhaps your soulmate is finally learning this lesson. Maybe before, they believed that saying sorry would solve everything. Now they may understand that trust requires repeated proof. They may understand that one conversation cannot erase everything. They may understand that if they want another chance, they must become someone you can trust again. My beloved child, there may also be something your brother did not tell you yet. Perhaps the conversation was more emotional than you realize. Perhaps your soulmate's voice changed when your name came up. Perhaps they became quiet for a moment. Perhaps they tried to hide how much they cared. Perhaps they asked one question and then immediately changed the subject because they realized they were revealing too much. These small moments can expose emotions people try to hide. But again, my child, do not turn imagination into certainty. If you want to know what was actually said, the only healthy path is honest communication. Do not create a story based on assumptions. Let facts come to you. Your peace is more important than solving a mystery. And perhaps the most beautiful thing happening behind the scenes is not that. Your soulmate is secretly asking about you. Perhaps it is that they are finally realizing how much courage it will take to approach you directly. They may be preparing themselves emotionally. They may be thinking about the first message. They may be wondering whether to call or text. They may be asking themselves whether an apology should come first. They may be trying to find the right words. And perhaps they are waiting for the right moment because they do not want to make another mistake. My child, if that moment comes, do not feel pressured to respond immediately. You can read the message and breathe. You can hear their words and think. You can decide later. Your heart does not need to answer faster than your mind can understand. This is important because your emotions may rise quickly when someone you have deeply missed finally returns. You may feel excitement. You may feel relief. You may feel anger. You may feel fear. You may feel hope. All of those emotions can exist at the same time. But you do not need to make a major decision while overwhelmed. Let the conversation unfold slowly. Let their actions become visible. My child, if they say they have changed, ask yourself what evidence exists. If they say they are serious, watch their consistency. If they say they want to rebuild, see whether they are willing to have difficult conversations. If they say they regret the past, notice whether they take responsibility without blaming everyone else. These are the signs of genuine growth. And if they cannot do these things, then you have your answer. You do not need another prediction. You do not need another sign. Their behavior will tell you. My beloved child, perhaps your soulmate has also been afraid that you have someone else now. That fear may explain why they contacted your brother instead of contacting you. They may have wanted to know whether another person has entered your life before exposing their feelings. They may have imagined the worst. They may have thought, what if they are happy without me? And that thought may hurt them more than they expected. But my child, remember that you are not responsible for protecting them from the consequences of their own absence. If they wanted to remain part of your life, they needed to communicate. If they chose distance, they must understand that distance creates change. You cannot remain frozen forever waiting for someone to decide what they want. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to meet new people. You are allowed to discover yourself again. You are allowed to become happy. And if your soulmate truly wants another opportunity, they must approach you with respect for the person you have become. They cannot demand the version of you they left behind. My child, your growth may actually be what attracts them back, not because you are trying to make them jealous, but because they can sense that you are no longer dependent on their attention. You have learned to stand on your own. You have learned to find peace without constant